So, good afternoon to all of you. So, today we will discuss about the next topic, that is embryo rescue and cryopreservation. First of all, we should know the word about rescue. What is rescue? Rescue means to provide some kind of protection. Okay, whenever we hear that sometimes there is a terrorist attack or some drought is there, flooding is there, so the army basically come for rescue. Rescue means to provide the prevention to certain things. So here embryo rescue means how we can protect the embryo. And next one is cryopreservation. It means storage of germplasm at very low temperature. That is called as cryopreservation. So we will discuss about each term in detail. Okay, so embryo rescue and cryopreservation. First of all, we should know what do we mean by the embryo rescue. So the embryo rescue refers to the number of in vitro techniques whose purpose is to promote the development of immature or weak embryo into viable plant. It means here what we have to do, we have to provide the protection to the immature or weak embryo which can develop into the complete plant. This embryo rescue has been widely used for producing plants from hybridization in which when endosperm is failed, it can causes the abortion of embryo. So it is very compulsory that endosperm should develop very properly so that the embryo can easily germinate from the endosperm. If there is a failure in the development of the endosperm, what will happen? There is a kind of abortion, means premature killing of the embryo, and the embryo cannot be rescued. Okay. In embryo rescue procedures, we have to use certain artificial medium which serves as a substitute for the endosperm. Means this artificial nutrient medium serves as the substitute for the endosperm, thus allowing the embryo to continue its development. This artificial nutrient medium will provide the nutrition to the endosperm, and when endosperm will survive, ultimately the embryo can easily develop into the whole plant. Then this embryo rescue techniques has been utilized to obtain progeny from intraspecific hybridization. Intraspecific means between the same species. Okay, intraspecific hybridization means hybridization between the same species that do not produce the viable seed. So embryo rescue is used where there is an issue of the viability of the seed. So these techniques are applied where we have to obtain the progeny through the method of intra-specific hybridization, and because they are not able to produce the viable seeds. So in order to overcome this barrier, we follow these techniques of embryo rescue. Okay. Now there are some factors which are involved in the embryo rescue. We will discuss about each factor in detail. Okay, first factor is about media. Normally, basically, we follow Mauritian scoop media and Gambos media, which are the most commonly used basal media for embryo rescue. Okay, MS media and Gambos media are the most recommended method for the embryo rescue. Then types and concentration of media supplements required depend greatly on the stage of development of the embryo. Okay, types and concentration of media supplement they basically depend upon at which stage the embryo is growing. So the concentration of media is very important. It depends on the different types of media and the concentration of media. Now, first of all, embryos initiate at the heterotrophic phase. Okay, so for them to develop, they require certain complex medium. This complex medium requires additional supplements like glutamine, asparagine, which are often added to the medium. Various vitamins are also included because vitamins are acting as the cofactors for the development of the embryo. Some natural extracts like plant extracts like coconut milk, which is itself a kind of plant hormone. We require casein hydroxide. They are used in a specific medium. And normally sucrose is provided as the carbon source. Okay, and it is used as the osmolite. It contains around 8 to 10, 12% of carbon. So I mean to say that every component of the media has its own importance value. We cannot omit any kind of compost nutrient because otherwise what will happen? The embryo cannot go for the proper germination. So what I told, basic amino acids are glutamine, asparagine, some plant extracts are used, sucrose are used as a carbon source, and vitamins are recommended as a source of cofactors. Cofactors are very important in the phase of germination. So first point is medium. Then in the autotrophic phase, it begins in the late, basically there are three stages of embryo, globular, torpedo and the heart shape. Okay, globular, torpedo and the heart shape. So this autotrophic phase generally begins in the last phase, that is the heart-shaped embryo stage. At this time, the embryo is capable of synthesizing substances required for growth from salt and sugar. So at this condition, the embryo is so much capable that it is not dependent on any other component. It is quite capable to synthesize its own growth from various salts and sugar, which we already provided in the media. So germination will occur on a simple inorganic medium, which are supplemented with 58 to 88 millimolar of sucrose. This concentration is fair enough for the germination in the simple inorganic medium. However, in general, low concentration of auxin promote normal growth, mainly root they promote. Gibberellic acid has caused embryo enlargement. Cytokinins have inhibited growth. In addition to supply vitamins and amino acids to the medium, natural extracts often supply the growth regulators. As I told you, coconut milk, it acts as the cytokinin, so it can act as the plant growth regulator. So gibberellic acid and cytokinin have inhibited growth. So in addition to some certain vitamins and amino acids, we use natural extract which can often supply the growth regulators. However, the media requirements differ depending on the stage of embryo. Okay, media required depending upon the stage of embryo. For example, initiation very in the initial stage of using very young embryo, more than one media formulation is required because in the growing phase it requires lot of nutrition. As we all know that when we are child, we take lot of nutrition, we become younger, then we become old. In the developing stages, the requirement of media start maximum from the initial phase. So I meant to say that in the very young stage of embryo, the component or the types of media or more than one media is required. That is very, very important. Then we come about another factors, that is temperature and light. Temperature is very, very important factors in the growth of embryo. However, variation in the temperature can inhibit their growth. Okay, so the embryos of cool season requires lower temperature than those of warm season crops. Basically, the cultures are normally kept at 25 to 28 degree centigrade, which is the optimum temperature for the growth of embryo. But sometimes also they are moved to lighted environment to allow chlorophyll development after 1 to 2 weeks in the dark. Okay. However, cultures are usually basically they are kept in the dark to provide some precise germination, but they are moved in the light environment condition to allow chlorophyll development after 1 to 2 weeks in the dark. Then the time of culture. Time of culture is very, very important. Cultures are often initiated at various levels, following pollination to maximize chance of recovering viable plants. Okay, so cultures are often initiated at various levels, following pollination to maximize chance of recovering viable plants. Since an interaction between media and time of culture is expected, it is important to test the range of media ranging from complex with the high sucrose content to a simple with the low sucrose content. So here the variation is in the sucrose content. When sucrose content is high, the media is complex. When the sucrose content is low, the media is very, very simple. So the time of culture again is very, very important, and what amount of pollination they are going, because pollination can increase the chance of recovering viable plants. If there is no pollination, then their condition will be very, very sterile. They are not able to produce new plants also. So what I told, the interaction between media and the time culture is very, very important. So basically they depend upon the sucrose content. That is sometimes at high level, sometimes at low level. Okay, so sucrose content and the time of culture are also very, very important. Then we come to protocol. What are the general embryo rescue procedures, or how we can basically do this process of embryo culture. So in the embryo culture, in the embryo rescue, first method is culture of embryo. That is the most commonly used method. Embryo culture is most commonly used method in the embryo rescue. Here what we are doing, we are directly taking out the embryos from the plant and directly putting the young embryo in the culture medium. Okay, like fruit from pollination of greenhouse or field growth plants is collected prior to the time at which embryo abortion is thought to occur. So we have to take very carefully when we collect the young embryo. We have to take carefully that there is no such kind of abortion in the embryo. So the condition of fruit is also very important. Since these embryos they are located in the sterile environment, this infestation of the embryo itself is not required. In some cases, we can surface sterilize the entire ovary, which can free from the different kind of contaminants like bacteria, fungi. So it is very important that at which condition we are taking the embryo should not be damaged, and once the embryo is collected, it should be properly sterilized in order to provide from any kind of contamination. So then the embryo will be placed directly into the culture. After the accession, embryo will be directly placed into the culture medium so that it do not become dry. But for heart shape and younger embryos, the embryo should be exercised with the suspensor intact. So I meant to say like there are different stages of embryo, globular, heart, torpedo. So especially for the heart-shaped embryo, the embryo should be exercised with the suspension intact. So we have to take care of these things. These are very important. Then next we perform the ovule culture. We can know that basically flowers are ripened ovule and fruit is ripened ovary. So embryos are very difficult to exercise when very young or from plant because that embryos are very small. We cannot easily see the embryo. So to prevent damaging embryos during the collection time, they are cultured while still inside the ovule. So ovule provides them the protection to the embryo. Okay, because since they are very small, so it is difficult to isolate them. So they are still we wait whenever they are cultured in the ovule. This technique is called as ovule culture or in ovule embryo culture. Okay, this technique is called as ovule culture or in ovule embryo culture. So, as with the embryo culture, ovaries are collected prior to the time at which embryo abortion is thought. Same concept applies here also. Here we are also collecting the ovaries prior to the abortion of the embryo. Then the ovary is again surface sterilized with certain disinfectants like mercury chloride, sodium hypochlorite. Okay, so that there is no kind of contamination. And ovules are removed, and they are again placed into the culture medium. This step is quite little bit easy for large seeded species in which only a single ovule is present. Okay, so when the plants are very high or seeds are very large, we can easily isolate the ovule. But when the plants are very small, they are very small seeded, then it is very critical to isolate the embryo from the ovule. So in the large seeded species, this technique is very easy, time consuming very less and difficult as compared to small seeded species. So when we go for the small ovulate species, it is time consuming and quite tedious process. Therefore, we prefer to collect the embryo from the ovules of the large seeded plants. Okay. After oviculture, we reach to the ovary culture. We know that what is fruit? Fruit is the ripened ovary. So in ovary or pot culture, the entire ovary is placed into the culture mediums. Again, ovaries are collected from remaining flower parts are removed. Again, ovaries are disinfected, mistreated with certain contaminants. So protocol must be followed to remove all kind of contamination without damaging the ovary. Same concept applies here also. Again, after treatment of various disinfectants, ovary is placed in the culture medium. They are cut from the pedicle. At the last of the experiment, seeds are removed from the fruit that develops in the culture. Finally, what we are doing, we are removing the seeds from the fruit, which ultimately develops in the culture. See, in this diagram, we can easily see this diagram that is the whole ovule. It contains megaspore mother cells. It contains nucellus, integuments, micropyle. This is the stalk of ovule. This is complete ovary. These are the ovules which are present in the ovary. This is complete mature flower. It is having nectar, the floral axis, pedicle. It contains style, stigma, and filament. And this is the round dark circle is basically black. Circle is denoted as ovary. And inside the ovary, lot of ovules are there. So we can say that ovules are also protected in the ovary. Then we go for procedure is same. We have to isolate the plant, treat with the disinfectants, put in the culture medium, wait for the germination, and then we are transferring into the field. So whole this process apply in the ovary culture. Then we come to the point why there is a requirement of embryo rescue, or we want to say that what is the importance of embryo rescue. First of all, first importance is to overcome the dormancy. In some fruit plants, embryos require period of time after ripening before germination. Okay, in some fruit plants, the embryo are not able to germinate easily before the germination. For example, in Texas or Tunis. So, in order to overcome their dormancy, we perform embryo rescue. Second application is in the reduction in the breeding cycle. Certain seeds, which takes 10 to 20 days for maturation, they are placed on the in vitro culture to overcome the maturation time. So what will happen? The time interval for their maturation is reduced. Okay. Third application is in the interspecific hybrids recovery. Sometimes distance crossed may fail. Sometimes due to the long distance, it may be failed of inability pollen to germinate. Because the pollens, since they are not able to travel, so what will happen? There is no pollination. There is no pollination. There is no germination. So what will happen? There is a failure of pollen tube to grow, and they will show the degeneration of the endosperm. So ultimately, what will happen? Embryo germination is failed. This problem, which problem? Failure of pollen to grow can be overcome by the embryo rescue. Because if the pollen is failed, there is no growth of endosperm. And when there is no growth of endosperm, there is no growth of embryo. So these are the main applications of embryo rescue to overcome the dormancy, to reduce the breeding cycle, and the inter-specific hybrids ovary means to overcome the failure of pollen to germinate. So these are the applications which we can do from the embryo rescue. Then we will study about another word that is called as somoclonal variation. Variation means the genetic diversity in certain species. As the name suggests, somoclonal variation. Variation in the somatic cells. Okay. So in somoclonal variation, we should know what is the exact definition of somoclonal variation. Somoclonal variation is defined as a genetic and phenotypic variation among tissue cultured raised plants from the single donor clone. For example, suppose we are using the single explant and we are producing the somoclone variation. Okay, we have generated lot of tissue culture plants in the laboratory, but suppose we are producing thousands of plants. However, still we will found certain diversity in that tissue culture is plant, and which this diversity is based on phenotype variation. Such kind of variation is called as chromosomal variation. They are caused by the process of tissue culture. Okay, to be called as tissue culture induced variation. So they can be basically manifested as either somatically or meiotically stable events. This monoclonal variation can be manifested either through somatic cell division or through the reductional cell division, that is meiosis, having the various events. Somatically stable variation includes phenotypes such as habituation of cultures and physiologically induced variation observed among primary regenerates. And meiotically heritable variation occurs, and it is important in situation where the end product, where it means the end product is seed, means the tissue culture plant is generated and from that plant seed is isolated. Both somatically stable variation and meiotically heritable variation supports the monoclonal variation. We know that it is a kind of phenotypic variation induced by the tissue culture technique. Then we discuss about the application of somoclonal variation. What is the need of somoclonal variation? Why we require that? Somoclonal variation is one of the useful source of introducing genetic variation that could be of value of plant breeders. So it is very important for the plant breeders using this technology. And single gene mutation in nuclear or organelle genome may give the best available variety in vitro that has a specific character. Okay, single gene mutation or organelle genome may have the best available variety in vitro, which is the having the best specific character. Various cell lines are selected under the laboratory conditions, which prove potentially applicable in the field of agriculture and industry, like resistance to herbicide, toxin, salt, or heavy metals. Okay, because of these various cell lines, the plant have the ability to find the resistance against herbicide, okay, against toxin, against salt, or against aluminum. Okay, variability in cell culture has played a useful role in synthesis of secondary metabolites on a commercial scale. Now, what are these secondary metabolites? They are some integral part of the plant metabolism, okay, which has played a useful role in the synthesis of secondary metabolites on the commercial scale. Okay, so the variability in cell culture has played a useful role in the synthesis of secondary metabolites. These secondary metabolites ultimately leads in the development of novel drugs, which are isolated from the medicinal plants. The plants are called as medicinal plants because of presence of the secondary metabolites like phenols, alkaloids, flavonoids, which are produced on the commercial large scale. Okay, so these are the applications of the chromosomal variation. Now we will read some examples which we get successful in the chromosomal variants of the crop plants. Like in the rice, significant improvements have been found relative to their parent, like there's an increase in the seed weight, seed protein content, tiller number, panicle length, time of flowering. In the wheat also, various variants were observed, which is used for gliadin proteins in seed, grain color, plant height, adding date and yield. Means basically the trait is for increasing the quality as well as quantity, and which can be germinated in the short period of time. Then we discuss about maize crop. Okay, in maize, plants regenerated from selected cell lines were resistant both to the toxin and to the infection of Drusilla maidis, causing southern leaf blight. Means it is resistant both kind of pathogens like T toxin and Drusilla maidis, which is causing southern leaf blight. These are the advantages of chromosomal variation, which we have observed in certain crop plants. Okay, then we reach about the next topic that is called as cryopreservation. Cryo means very, very low temperature, means below 0 degree. And preservation means to keep something. Okay, preservation means to keep something at very low temperature. First of all, we will define what is cryopreservation. So, cryopreservation literally means preservation in the frozen state. It means the temperature can be around minus 195, minus 196. The principle involved in cryopreservation is that here what we do is plant cell and tissue cultures are having a zero metabolism or they are in the having of non-dividing state by reducing the temperature in the presence of cryoprotectants. Here what we are doing, we are basically inhibiting their metabolism. We are reducing their dependency on temperature because already this criteria is fulfilled by the cryopreservation. So this technique was done by using solid carbon dioxide at providing solid CO2 at minus 79 degree, low temperature deep freezers at minus 80 degree, and liquid nitrogen phase at minus 150 degree, and sorry at minus 196 degree, and the vapor phase of nitrogen in minus 150 degree. So all these are four basically cryoprotectants which are used in the process of cryopreservation. Among these, the most commonly method is by the use of liquid nitrogen because at the temperature of minus 196, the cell stay in a completely inactive state and thus they can be protected or conserved for about thousands of years for the longer periods. Why? Because here the cells are in the inactive state completely and they can be conserved for the longer periods or for the longer duration of time. Okay, so these are the four cryoprotectants: solid CO2, deep freezers, vapor phase nitrogen, and liquid nitrogen. And most commonly, we are using which one? We are using mainly the liquid nitrogen, which we are using mainly. Okay, then we discuss about what is the actual mode of action of cryopreservation. or what is the mechanism of cryopreservation. See, of freeze preservation is based on the transfer of water present in the cells from a liquid to the solid state. Here what is happening? The phase of the water is changing. Means in this procedure, there is a transfer of water which are present in the cell from liquid to the solid state. And due to the presence of salts and organic molecules in the cells, the cell water requires much more lower temperature to freeze. That is even up to 68 degree. Due to the presence of certain salts and organic molecules, the water require very lower temperature, that is about minus 68 degree, compared to the freezing point of water, that is around 0 degree, because the salts and organic molecules helps to sustain the water so that it can accumulate the lower temperature as compared to its freezing point. However, when the stored at low temperature, the metabolic process and biological deteriorations in the cells and tissue almost come to standstill. However, when stored at low temperature, the metabolic process and biological deteriorations in the cells almost come to the standstill. Is that clear? So it is having at the constant temperature. So what will happen? The biological deteriorations in the cell and tissue become almost come to the standstill. Then we come to the next point, that is what are the precautions or what are the limitations of cryopreservation. As we know that every technology has certain beneficial points and certain negative points. No doubt, cryopreservation is very important tools for the preservation of endangered species, for the preservation of germ plas, but it is having certain kind of limitation. Okay, it is having what certain kind of limitation. First of all, what is the first limitation? There is the formation of ice crystals inside the cell. What will happen if there is a formation of ice crystal in the cell? They can cause injury to the different cell organelles in the cell. Okay, so formation of ice crystals should be avoided. Then higher intracellular concentration of solutes like salts, organic acids. If their concentration is high, they can also damage the cells. Okay. Sometimes certain solutes from the cell may leak during the freezing. Okay, sometimes certain solutes from the cell may leak. So what will happen? Whole procedure will be failed. So we have to take care that no solute should be leaked during the process of cryopreservation. The cryoprotectants, which I told you there are four, like solid CO2, liquid nitrogen, gaseous nitrogen. Sometimes they affect the viability of the cells. Okay, sometimes they affect the viability of the cells. Right? So some cells can be easily germinated, some cells cannot be easily germinated. Okay, the physiological status of the plant is also important. Whether the plant is in the young state, it is in the juvenile state, or it is in the old state. Okay, the physiological status of the plant is also very important. Okay, so these are the five limitations of the cryopreservation. Now we discuss about the how we can perform the process of cryopreservation. First of all, what we have to do, we have to take the explant, we have to put the explant into the culture medium. Once it is growth, we will make it sterile. Means we can provide it autoclave or we can treat with the various discontaminants. After that, we will addition of various cryoprotectants before the pre-treatment. After addition of cryoprotectants, we will go for freezing. After freezing, we will go for storage. Okay, after freezing, we will go for storage. After storage, we will go for thawing. Thawing means rubbing between the hands and provide some heating. Thawing is a kind of rubbing between the hands we can do. In that, we can provide slowly heating. Then we will go for again reculture of the tissue culture plant. Then we will go for the measurement of viability. Means suppose we have taken the 10 plants. Out of 10 plants, how much plants are able to survive? What is the viability ratio of that plant? And finally, we'll go for plant regeneration. Okay, finally, we will go for plant regeneration. Okay, these are the different process of cryopreservation. Okay, then we can see from this diagram, first of all, that we have taken the shoot tip culture. We have taken shoot tips. These basically what we've done. Shoot tips are grown in the medium with having DMSO. DMSO is dimethyl sulfoxide. After then DMSO, it is also a crab protectant. When we added DMSO, we have one side we have put shoot tips into the liquid nitrogen, and from the liquid nitrogen it will go under the medium, and from the medium the shoot tips are transferred to the culture medium. Okay, but in the second pathway here again, what we are doing, we are taking shoot tips. We are directly transferring the shoot tips in the emptied frozen region of the liquid nitrogen, and from here we are transferring into the emptied stored liquid nitrogen, and from here we are transferring into the thawing in the warm water, and from the after thawing of the warm water, again this process will start. Again, shoot tips are transferred in the semi-solid medium. Means one cycle is this, one cycle is this. We are transferring the shoot tips in the semi-solid medium by two different pathways. One using the normal temperature, one using the liquid nitrogen. So this, and as a crab protectant here, we are adding DMSO, that is dimethyl sulfoxide. So this picture is clearly tells about the process of cryopreservation. Okay, then we should know, we will discuss each process in detail. First step I told you it is the development of the sterile tissue culture. For that, what we will do, selection of the plant species and the tissue with particular reference to the morphological and physiological characters influence the ability of the explant to survive in the cryopreservation. Okay, the selection of the plant species and tissue with particular reference to the morphological and physiological characters largely influence the ability of the explant to survive in the cryopreservation. Okay, any tissue from the plant can be used for cryopreservation. Means we can use any kind of explant. It can be meristem, it can be embryo, it can be endosperm, it can be ovules, it can be seeds, their cultured plant cells, protoplast, callus. Among these, meristem cells and suspension cell cultures in the late lag phase or log phase are most suitable. Okay, because meristematic cells are the young cells which have the capacity of the cell division. So it is good when we take the meristematic cell and suspension cells in the late lag phase or in the late log phase. These are the most suitable for the development of cell tissue culture. So we can use any kind of explant. And important is to take the meristematic cell and suspension cell mainly in the late lag phase or the initial log phase. These are the most ideal conditions for the development of sterile tissue culture. Okay, then we come to addition of cryoprotectants in treatment. The cryoprotectants are the compounds which can prevent the damage caused to the cells by freezing or thawing. What are cryoprotectants? They are the compounds which can prevent the damage caused by cells which are caused by the freezing or thawing. The freezing point and supercoiling point of water are reduced by the presence of these cryoprotectants. So as a result, ice crystal formation is reduced during the process of cryopreservation, because I told you if there is the formation of ice crystal, it can damage the cell tissue. So there are other several cryoprotectants which are highly recommended in this process. For example, we have discussed DMSO, glycerol, ethylene, polypropylene, sucrose, mannose, glucose, proline, acetamide. We can use several cryoprotectants, but most widely which are recommended are DMSO, sucrose, and glycerol. Okay, DMSO, sucrose, and glycerol are the most widely used recommended cryoprotectants. Generally, they are not used individually. The mixture of cryoprotectants instead of single are used as a more effective method. So when we use a mixture or cocktail of these cryoprotectants, what will happen? They cannot damage the cells, and we can do the effective cryopreservation in the cells. Okay, what we can do? We can do the effective cryopreservation in the cells. So after developing of the sterile tissue culture plants, next step was addition of cryoprotectants. After that, next step is of freezing. Basically, four different types of freezing is done. First is slow freezing method. Here what we do, the tissue or the plant material is freezing very slowly at a slowly cooling rate of 0.5 to 5 degree per minute, or from 0 degree to minus 100 degree centigrade. After that, they are transferred to the liquid medium. Means here the rate of freezing and cooling is very, very low. That is 0.5 to 5 degree per centigrade per minute. Then comes the rapid freezing method. This technique is quite simple and involves plunging of the vial containing plant material into the liquid nitrogen. During this method, there is a decrease in temperature of about minus 300 degree to minus 1000 degree centigrade per minute. Means the rate is about 30 or 1000 times as compared to slow freezing method. And the freezing process is carried out so quickly that small ice crystals are formed within the cells. During the rapid freezing method, sometimes there is the formation of small ice crystals there which are formed within the cells. So two methods are there. Then third method is stepwise freezing method. This method is a cocktail of about two methods which we mentioned, a slow method and rapid freezing method. So it is a combination of slow and rapid freezing method and is carried out in the stepwise manner. It is carried out in the stepwise manner. The plant material is first cooled to an intermediate temperature and maintained there for about 30 minutes and then rapidly cooled by plunging it into the liquid nitrogen. The plant matter is cooled to an intermediate temperature and maintained for about half an hour, and then again it is rapidly cooled by plunging it into the liquid nitrogen. The stepwise freezing method has been successfully used for the cryopreservation of suspension cultures. Suspension cultures are means cultures which are kept in the liquid media, means without agar agar. They are not kept in the solid media. They are also successfully used in the shoot apex in the birds. And the fourth and the last method is dry freezing method. Last method is dry freezing method. Some workers have reported that the non-germinated dry seeds can survive freezing at very low temperature, in contrast to water imbibing seeds, which are susceptible to cryogenic injuries. In a similar fashion, dehydrated cells are found to have a better survival rate after cryopreservation. Okay, some workers have reported that the non-germinated dry seeds can survive freezing at very low temperature in contrast to water imbibing seeds which are susceptible to cryogenic injuries. In a similar fashion, dehydrated cells are found to have a better survival rate after cryopreservation. Okay, in a smaller fashion, dehydrated cells are found to have a better survival rate after the process of the cryopreservation. Then we come the process of storage. Here what we do, maintenance of these frozen cultures is done at the specific temperature which is important as freezing. In general, the freezing cells are kept for temperature in the range of minus 70 to minus 196 degree. Okay, here the temperature is in the range of minus 70 to minus 196 degree temperature. However, with temperature of above minus 130 degree, the ice crystals grow may occur inside the cell, which reduce viability of cells. So storage is ideally done in liquid nitrogen refrigerator. Okay, storage is done in the liquid nitrogen refrigerator at 150 degree centigrade in the vapor phase. But when the temperature is going very, very low down, that is still minus 196 degree, the phase of water change from gases to the liquid phase. Okay, so here what we are doing, first the temperature is maintained above minus 130 degree centigrade. So what will happen? The storage is done. After that, the temperature is kept at minus 150 degree. Here we are using the nitrogen as a vapor phase, and after that we are using the nitrogen at a temperature of minus 196 degree in the liquid phase. All this process is done in the storage method. Okay, then comes the method of thawing. Thawing is actually normally carried out by plunging. We can say rubbing between the hands. Plunging the frozen samples in the ampoules into warm water. We can also keep the frozen samples into the warm water. Here the temperature is around 37 to 45 degree with vigorous swirling. Vigorous swirling means vigorous rotating, shaking here and there from one direction to another. So vigorous means at a very rapid rate. By using this method or by using rapid thawing at the rate of 500 to 750 degree temperature per minute, there is a protection of the cell from the damaging effect of the ice crystal. As I told you, this ice crystal can damage the cell. So by using this approach, by the rapid thawing, we can prevent the damage of cell which is caused due to the effect of ice crystal. So as the thawing occurs, ice completely melts. The ampoules are quickly transferred to the water bath at the temperature of 20 to 25 degrees. This transfer is very important because the cells can damage if they are left for a long time in warm water. So the time interval for keeping the cells in warm water is also very important. Okay, because when cells are kept for a long time, they can also damage the cell tissue. So for the cryopreservation material, cells tissues, where the water content has been reduced to an optimum level before freezing, the process of thawing becomes less critical. Okay, the process of thawing becomes very less critical, right? So this is the method of thawing which we discussed. Then we discuss about next method is reculture. In general, the thawed germplasm is washed several times to remove the protectants. This material is again recultured again into the fresh medium following the same culture method. Some workers prefer to directly culture the thawed material without washing. According to them, they said that there is no need of washing the cryoprotectants because when we go for the washing again, there are certain vital substances released from the cells during freezing, which are used in the promotion of in vitro cultures. So during the washing, some useful substances can be removed from the cells during freezing, which are believed to promote the in vitro cultures. That comes under the pre-culture. Means some scientists prefer, some scientists do not prefer. It depends. So we have to take care during the rewashing of the already thawed germplasm culture. Okay. Then comes the basically measurement of the cell's viability. Basically, there are various techniques to measure the viability, survivability of the cell. Like staining techniques using TTC, tetrazolium chloride, Evans blue, and fluorescence diacetate, they are commonly used to find the viability of the cells. The best indicator to measure the viability of cryopreserved cells is their entry into the cell division and the growth in the culture. Okay, the best indicator to measure the viability of cryopreserved cells is their entry into the cell division and growth in the culture. This can be done by the following formula that number of cells upon organs growing, number of cells upon organs thawed into 100. That will give us the cell viability ratio. Okay, so simple formula is there. We use various stains like TTC, Evans blue, fluorescence diacetate. That comes under the measurement of survivability or viability. Okay. Then finally we come to the step of plant regeneration. The ultimate purpose of cryopreservation is to regenerate the germplasm of the desired plant. So for appropriate plant growth and regeneration, what we use, the cryopreserved cells or tissues have to be carefully isolated and grown. Okay, the cryopreserved cells or tissues have to be carefully nursed or they are carefully grown. Okay, addition of certain growth promoting substances. Okay, addition of certain growth promoting substances besides maintenance of appropriate environmental condition is often necessary for the successful plant regeneration. Okay, addition of certain growth promoting substances besides maintenance of appropriate environmental condition is often necessary for successful plant regeneration. Okay, so this what are these growth promoting substances? All kind of protectants, vitamins, cofactor, carbon source, media, inorganic ions, all these are basically found as the growth promoting substances. And the last slide is shown upon the what are the very basic applications of the cryopreservation. So first application is maintenance of the stock cultures. Plant materials of various species can be cryopreserved and maintained for the several years. They are used when they are needed. I told you we can prevent the stock cultures for longer years. This is an ideal method for long-term conservation of cell cultures which produce secondary metabolites, that is important phytochemicals which are used as a medicine, which are isolated from the plants and which are used to cure many diseases. Disease-free plant materials can be frozen. They are propagated whenever required. Okay. Disease-free plant materials can be frozen and can be propagated whenever they are required. Recalcitrant seeds can be maintained for a long time. Okay. Recalcitrant seeds can be maintained for the long time. Conservation of chromosomal and gametoclonal variations can be done. Okay. conservation of somoclonal and gametoclonal variations in the cultures can be done. Plant materials from endangered species can also be conserved. It is one of the best application of crab preservation that there are certain plants which are endangered and we can easily prevent their jump plants and it can be conserved very easily. Then conservation of pollen tubes can be done to increase the embryo growth, proper germination of the plant, proper endosperm germination. Okay, so conservation of pollen for enhancing longevity can be done. Rare jump plasm developed through somatic hybridization and other genetic manipulations can also be stored. Rare jump plasms which are very less available, they can be developed through certain hybridization techniques and other genetic manipulations. They can also be stored for the long time. So these are the main very importance of the cryopreservation. So in this lecture, we discuss about three things: embryo rescue, how we can protect the embryo. Then we discuss about the application of embryo rescue, process of embryo rescue. Then we discuss about the somoclonal variation, process of somoclonal variation, importance of somoclonal variation. Then we discuss about the cryopreservation, applications of cryopreservation, what are the cryoprotectants, what are different methods like deep freezing, thawing, storage, and finally we discuss about the various applications of cryopreservation. I hope this lecture can understand you a lot. So thank you very much.